Now that goes against everything that you've been taught your whole life. Everything you've been taught your whole life. You've been taught that you think with your mind. But in the Quran, it talks about what the mind does. Think about some of the things the Quran says about the mind. Jesus said, let us forget the body. He said, let us forget the flesh and go with mind. And go with mind. So therefore, he is identifying that the mind is a vehicle that we could use to transcend boundaries, that we could use to transcend time and space. So when the Prophet Muhammad, he talked about going from Mecca to Jerusalem and back to Mecca in one night, the night's journey. How did he travel? He said he traveled on an animal called Barak, and this animal in one stride, he moves as far as his eyes could see at the speed of thought. At the speed of thought. He was traveling with the mind. You understand what I'm saying? What else did he say about the mind? He said, these tools remind me of the ones we handle in the workshop of the mind. So he's telling us that there is a workshop in the mind. And he's saying where we build up thought. He said where things are made of thought and where we build up character. Now he's telling us what we're supposed to be doing in the workshop, but that's not what you have to do because your mind is yours. You can change it when you want to.
Islam. Paradigm Shifting Podcast. I'm Sheik Maurice Pennington Bey. I got the brother, Mauryell Smithfield, and I got the sister, Sunshine Monie. Islam. How the Moors doing?
Islam, brother, doing well today. Great Tuesday. You know, shout out to all the Moors that's watching. And man, let's get into it.
Let's get into it. That's right. What about you? How you doing, sis?
All is well. Winding down my day, really. I've been on the move all day.
You too. You too. Okay. All right, so today's topic is the history and spiritual teachings of the Moors. And hidden in plain sight. So when we talk about the history and the spiritual teachings of the Moors, we understand that our people are, you know, the original people. Our people have created multiple, hundreds of civilizations over the course of history. And therefore, you know, the teachers have taken on so many different shapes, so many different forms, you know, achieved so much, you know, they everywhere. But right now, you know, I really like this topic because what I want to focus on is how even though, you know, we might say, hey, you know what, we want America, we want science, and then you got, you know, people in the Kemetic traditions, and they say, well, you know, we this or we that, and then you got the people in the Ifa Yoruba traditions or the Santeria traditions or etc. What it all boils down to is that we are all one people, and that these teachings were developed by our people and just scattered abroad with our people. If that makes sense to y'all. So let's talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, even if we want to start right there, when you talk about the different, you know, spiritual systems, what's hidden in plain sight really is how, you know, our ancestors, really the Moors, specifically the Moors that were in Spain, were some of the first Moors to syncretize for religious traditions. So when we look at how when Moors came into Spain, that wasn't the first time we was there, let's get that. But when we came during that time period in Spain, when we look at how, one, you had, of course, Moors coming from Arabia, Moors coming from North Africa, and then you had the inhabitants that was already there that converted to Islam as well. And in that, the civilization itself sparked a melting pot. And that's really the true thing about Moorish culture within itself, is that Moorish culture has always been a mixing of different elements per se. Even if we look at pre-Islamic times, when we look at how some Moors adapted different Christian ideologies, Some more stayed to their more traditional Amazigh traditions as well. If we look at the history of trans-Saharan trade as well, when we look at how Islam came into West Africa, a lot of early Muslim trade centers practiced, again, an element of Islam where they were taking elements that were good, that was practicing amongst the Mandinka or the Fulani or the Songhai or, even some Yoruba. We took some of the best elements and made it a part of the culture. And I think that's something that we don't really look at, is that, again, the Moors for Spain were really the first Moors to be forced to be under Christianity, rebel, syncretize religions under secret origins, create maroon communities, enslave, all of those different, the cycle of that, from being free to then being subjugated to then having to hide certain things under the religion, to then break away and create maroon parallel societies. The Moors in Spain were the first ones to do this. So then when you look at then what starts to happen in the Americas, where more people further south starts to get added into the mix, people from Congo, people from Angola, people from Cameroon, Gabon, these modern day places, that system was already kind of set. And that's an element that is rarely talked about. Again, when we look at somebody like Francisco Menendez in Spanish Florida, quote unquote, where people, this was like the Underground Railroad before the Underground Railroad in Spanish Florida. A lot of brothers and sisters would try to get away from in the Carolinas and the Georgia area, to try to get away from the plantations and come to Florida, specifically St. Augustine. And what we had was what's that word called? The Fort Mose. And this was another place where, again, Francisco Menendez, who was seen as the leader, he was from West Africa, Gambia, was a Muslim, knew Spanish and Arabic. So this element is what made us Moors like him dangerous, because he was literate and he knew multiple languages. So his ability to organize and understand the politics of the day is what made him dangerous. So pretty much what I'm getting at is a lot of things that our people think about or look at as quote unquote Black excellence really has its origins in how Moorish culture and civilization itself ran. Because we always, well, I ain't gonna say always, but at our height, we practice things like convivencia, where Muslims, Jews, Christians in Islamic Spain will be able to practice under their own laws, but we still spread knowledge amongst each other because we understood that knowledge is universal. So I think that's the first aspect that's hidden in plain sight, that a lot of, again, this concept of syncretism, of us being able to see the similarities in different religions and mindsets and things like that, that's something that comes straight out of Moorish civilization. And really, the term Moor itself is a civilizational term. That's why people get things messed up when they talk about quote unquote white Moors, tawny Moors, Black Moors, things like that. It's a reason why lighter people took up our dress, took up our customs, took up our, our trades and traditions and things like that. Is because the way we ran our civilization at its height was inclusive.
Islam. I just did a little AI search, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it says, before Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, the practice of peace, what we now call Islam, existed in ancient forms long before the 600s AD, when Muhammad received revelation. The Quran itself says all prophets came with the same message: submission to Allah and peace through righteousness. Right. So then it goes on and talks more about this ancient roots of peace, pre-Islamic Islam, and whatnot. And this is something that's hidden in plain sight, because when we start talking about religions like Islam, Christianity, and so forth, well, we have our institutions, right? We have institutions, and all of these institutions have their own politics. They have their own, adaptations that kind of, to me, depending on who's at the head of it, it might even have a negative impact or effect on the spirituality itself. And then the science, like with us, religion and the practice of religion or spirituality is a science. This is science. This is what, it helps us to navigate life, in general. It helps us to be successful, at our endeavors, because it's more than what it's more than what most people see in it, right? And I think Raul Neff really put a good example in the introduction of the Metal Netter, when he talks about how some Christian missionaries had went. I forgot he said exactly what part of Africa. I don't know if it was Egypt, but they went and they gave the people there a book that that was written in the language that they could read, and the people gave them back a book and say, "Hey, we got stories just like this for our children." So when I looked at that, and it was like, some people, a lot of the brothers that was studying it with me, they laughed and was, thought that those Asiatic people was trying to be funny, but they weren't trying to be funny. They was really telling them like, hey, you know what? That's in line with the way we teach. You understand what I'm saying? So, but yeah, when I look at what's hidden in plain sight, we got to look at mathematics. They say mathematics is the language of the gods, right? So I want to ask Sunshine on the tell me something. How does the term mathematics is the language of the gods to you? How does it prove itself right? How does that term prove itself right?
As far as mathematics, everything is derived out of mathematics. Like, I'm big on gematria too. So all the letters that we use, regardless of what language you speak, or what do you call it, like Sanskrit you write in or whatever, all of that is all of that is derived out of numbers. Um when over so one of the podcasts that I'm doing over here, we talk about the different tribes that are over in the Americas. I'm trying to figure out how to formulate my sentence. Excuse me. um and the way they wrote their letters, everything was derived out of numbers, and everything was based on 20. In fact, they had zero over here, which was a new concept, and so that kind of opened up the mindset and that spiritual realm of putting things in your space, because we know zero is cipher, zero is space. So yeah, everything is decided into numbers. I think that a wonderful, okay, Virgo, it's coming. It's coming. I think that a good like mirror to that is the internet. Everything is based on the ones and the zeros, and then you have numbers based off of that. And so when you get into that, that's a really good mirror to the physical reality, and how everything is based on whatever numbers we're using. Like, at one point in time we were basing everything on 20. Right now we base everything on the 9. Sometimes certain places that you go to, they'll base things on the 10. We got people like Terrence Howard that's, making zero a whole nother thing, which creates a whole different reality for us. When you get into I think Pythagoras, I know he was not the originator, but just going off of, people know what that is when I say that. That's a whole different realm when it comes into like how light is reflected into our reality and how our eyeballs absorb the light, and then getting into the cones in our eyesight, and the cones in our chakras and energy. All of that is in alignment with those with the mathematics of the triangles. And so like everything is based on the numbers: our physical reality, our spiritual reality, our emotional reality, our virtual reality. Everything is based upon the numbers. I know people get in an uproar about the language that we use, especially when we get into the calendar. Because I know that's a lot of pushback I get with the daily mathematics, because I utilize the Gregorian calendar. But I use the other calendars too. Nobody just pays attention. But it is what it is. But getting into those numbers of things, even like the alignment of the astrology to the numerology. Like right now we're in the 8th month. But when you get into the jargon of it, October, oct is 8. So it's kind of like we kind of deal with like the inside out of that kind of, that's the 10th month that brings the earth Jeb. So when you get into nature, yeah, it makes sense for Jeb to be over there in October, because that's when you're dealing with harvesting and, preparing the soil and, before it gets, dry for the winter, whatever. So it makes sense for October that to be the 8 over there. And then this 8 makes sense because in this 8 of the month, we're in Oya season, you know what I'm saying? Like, the major rivers, whether you're in the Euphrates area, the Mississippi, or in the Nile, we're dealing with the storms and the hurricanes and stuff like that. So mathematics is also in nature reality, all that to say. So yeah, it's the basis for everything. It's the one true universal language, honestly, in my opinion, in my reality, from my observation and my experience. It is the one true thing, because once you learn the numbers and I say a number to you, you already know, pop in your head. But if I say a word to you and you don't speak the same language I speak, you don't know what to think off of what I'm saying.
Islam. I'm looking at the
We're frozen.
yeah, say we and on my Facebook it say that the live stream ended.
Yeah, it says, is it possible the stream was ended or deleted on Facebook? We'll keep trying to let you know if it's resolved.
We're having trouble streaming to Facebook. This may be an issue on Facebook's end. They banned our topic, y'all.
They banned the topic.
It looked like they did. Let me tell
Oh
everybody.
wow, that's interesting.
That's really interesting.
It's still saying. I think on my end it say we still alive.
Yeah, you got 2 people on yours, and that's it. Mine's got a red dot up here.
Yeah, somebody said I can see you all, Brother Davis Bay.
Okay, let me see what's going on with this. You on Facebook. That's crazy. Yep. Mine's ended on Facebook. Islam. Tell everybody to go over to the YouTube. Islam. All right. Now I can't hear y'all. What in the world is going on?
No, I was muted, Mo. I was muted.
Oh, y'all muted yourself. Okay.
I was muted.
Okay, it's not. I don't know. My Facebook kicked us off.
Yeah, people say they can see and hear us though.
It's not, man. Let's keep going.
Yeah.
So, the way I see it exactly the same way. And to me, how the numbers prove themselves is just, just watching how they reoccur in nature. Is she still talking, or was she talking to somebody else?
She may be talking to somebody else.
Oh, okay. But Annetta Reed, she said, I can see. Okay, it's not. But yeah, you see the number 3 constantly reoccurring in nature. Like the Trinity. You see the number 7, the perfect number. Constantly reoccurring in nature. And to me, that's a sign that the statement is true. That mathematics is the language of the God, and mathematics being a science, it's a science, and it's not strange. You spoke about what's this, Pythagoras, and also the zero. I will never forget the first time I found out that Europeans did not have a zero until, what was it, like the 12th century or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's like crazy as heck to me. That's like crazy as heck to me. And then I looked at the Sheik Diop and how he, when he developed his radiocarbon analysis laboratory and just, went through all of the museums and showing how our ancestors had all over the world. I'm talking about had left these structures that was mathematically congruent all over the planet. You understand what I'm saying? So to me, that's where, because when what I was looking for, I was really looking for the sister to say, because she always says peace, God. I really wanted her to say, because that's the way Asiatics speak. That's the way we leave our foot. That's the way we leave our handprint on creation, is through mathematics. You know what I'm saying? So I think she's talking to her.
What we gotta understand too is that, like, even terms like what we're on now, right? Facebook, we're using an algorithm that comes from algorithm, right? Algebra comes from algebra. So these mathematical concepts comes directly out of the Islamic and Moorish world, going all the way back to ancient Egypt. So and that's the biggest thing that we can harp on is the whole entire spiritual and conscious community, without even knowing it, is speaking and using more science. We look at tarot cards, when we look at the crystal ball, when we look at runes, look at incense, right? Our people, the incense trade going back to Egypt, Arabia, Sudan. You talking about a trade that's thousands and thousands of years old, right? When we look at crystals, everybody's into crystals, all of these different things that's a part of the spiritual conscious community. These are things that, again, right, the Moors, being the preservers of ancient Egyptian knowledge, is what we've been doing. And that people wouldn't even have access to study these things if our ancestors didn't preserve this knowledge, give Europe some of this knowledge in the first place. And I'm not saying this to be facetious. I'm saying this so that, like, people can really understand that, again, as Moors, as the prophets say, we honor all true and divine prophets. We are friends and servants of humanity. We're here to build a bridge where everybody's trying to blow them up with the historical facts to back it.
Islam. When you say when we say Moors, right?
Yes, sir.
What do we mean by that?
That's a great question. Again, first off, the term Moor itself, right, comes from, as the prophet first tells us, right, the ancient Moabite. Understanding that there's a tribe in North Africa called the Moori. And the Moori, as Strabo put, right, they called themselves Moors. So this whole thing about, Moor meaning black and all of that, that's something later. The Moori called themselves Moors, right? So some of the earliest definitions or meanings of what Moor meant was initially Western. That's also tied into the term Amorite as well, because the Amorites, their god was called Amuru. And Amuru was known as the god of the gods of the Amorites, or the god of the West. So when the prophet, when he's telling us, right, the Moabite and their Canaanite, Amorite, Hittite, Hamathite brethren, we're talking about, again, the dominion of Exodus, the dominion of Egypt, that goes all the way up into far up into Anatolia. That's another thing. Have you seen the movie Troy recently?
Uh-uh.
Oh, Mo, go rewatch it. It's crazy.
The old one, or do they have a new one?
With Brad Pitt. The one with Brad Pitt.
The old one, okay.
Yeah, it's the stuff that's in the background of this movie. It's like that. It's right in your face. These people are supposed to be, again, because it's about the fight of Troy. So they're supposed to be in somewhere in Anatolia, where Troy was at. The Trojans is fighting the Mycenaean Greeks. Nothing but Egyptian type statues. Even the god Apollo was in a gold statue, and he looked like an Asiatic in the movie. So it's like understanding that the dominion of Amexem, the ancient Egypt land, right? This is something that goes all the way up into places that we don't necessarily associate with Egypt. And that this culture, again, right? It was the bridge. You're talking about going all the way up as far as Anatolia, even into Armenia, all these different places, right? The Armenian script looks exactly like Ethiopian Ge'ez, right? All the way conservatively, let's say India. Conservatively, let's say India. We can even mention the Spice Islands, Indonesia, Malaysia, these areas as well, right? Going all the way to West Africa, Morocco, Mauritania, etc. So like our people have always been, and that's what we really got to get our people to understand. We have always facilitated diffusion in world history, where cultures clash, share ideas, knowledge. As they're trading, spiritual knowledge is always being given as well. Because that's how we are.
I want to show y'all something, right?
Yes, sir.
Grab
my laptop charger.
Okay. So I want to look at the Holy Quran of the Moorish Temple of America, and the 101s. So in the 101s, the Prophet Noble Ali says, "What is your nationality?" The answer is Moorish American. He then says, "What is his nationality?" Moorish American. What is your nationality? Moorish Americans. Why are we Moorish Americans? Because we are descendants of Moroccans and born in America. Then later on, the Prophet Noble Ali asks us, "What is the modern name for Moabite?" And he says Moroccan. So he's letting us know, okay, so the Moroccan is a Moabite, right? So in the Holy Quran of the Moorish Temple of America, it says that man, like every other thought of Allah, was but a seed that held deep within himself the potencies of Allah. All right. So he said, so now he's letting it be known that man is a seed of Allah. All right. The human seed that came forth from the heart of Allah. This is what man is. Well, the word Moabite actually means seed of the Father, right? Seed of the Father, or children of God. So when we say Moors, then this is what we mean. We mean the children of God. So now when we look all around the world at all of the different people, the various different nations that the brother just spoke about, all these Asiatic nations are all the seed of the Father. And so all of the spiritual teachings and the creations and everything that came from these people all go back to that same origin, that same potency, that same capacity that chapter number 1 of the Holy Quran of the Moorish Temple of America talks about. I want to say this. The Holy Quran of the Moorish Temple of America is not the only spiritual book that says these same things. We in the Moorish Temple of America are not the only ones who teach this same truth. Understand what I'm saying? I remember sitting in the classroom with the brothers, and we was looking at the tree of life, right? So we was looking at the tree of life, and I just asked, because I looked at it and I seen something. So I just asked the brothers a question. I was like, why isn't Ra and Set, why they don't have a spear on the tree of life? And it was amazing to me, because here it is, we are studying something that's supposed to be teaching us how to be holistic in our perception, right? That's what that's the basis of the teaching. Let's become holistic in our perception, especially the way we see ourselves and we see the world around us. This is the basis of it. This is where it begins, okay? And everybody kept on breaking down the individuality of each spirit, the role that they play in life. And I was like, wow. So then one of the elders turned around and was like, well, Pennington Bey, what is it that you see? And I said, I see that all of these spirits have an ego. I see that all of these spirits would be nothing without the spirit energy that is Ra. You understand what I'm saying? So therefore, Set and Ra, they are there. They everywhere. They all over there. You see what I'm saying? And that's the reality. Now, when we look at every single solitary atom and cell in the universe, all of what our ancestors called netters or orishas or angels, every single solitary one of them could be found in every single individual atom or cell in the universe. If it lives, if it operates, this is ultimately what we are being taught, if you ask me. What you think?
I agree. That's how I teach. That's how I conduct my readings. It's all interconnected. I know I ruffle some feathers to people who are emotionally connected to everything being divided.
That's crazy.
But
you say you ruffle some feathers of people who are emotionally connected to everything being divided.
Especially when it comes to the Orisha conversation, dealing with people that are heavy into the Orishas, they do not like to align that practice or those concepts with anything else. I think that was the space that I got the most resistance, but it is what it is. It is all in alignment. Ra'un Affair, he aligned it beautifully in how he wrote the books and how he gets into the process of healing, the process of getting to the root of an issue, the process of planning something, the process of manifesting, coming down from the Ketters down to Jeb, and then going from Jeb up into the Ketters, and the different reasons why you would go one route versus the other. You know what I'm saying? It is all in alignment. And it's all in tune with nature. It's all in tune with the energy centers in your body. When you think about the body systems that you have, and you can correlate those with the Orishas. A lot of the stories that we hear about the different deities and the angels and the different Shivas and the divas and all of them, all the different stories are stories that are saying what happens when you overindulge in certain energy, or when you don't indulge at all, or when you're called to activate certain energy. um, One particular story that comes to mind, that fast was Obatala, Jupiter's energy. We know he's associated with the sacral chakra. This is your space of being in joy and, being sensual, which is like, all your senses and your sexual self and your creative self. Well, you get into the stories of Jupiter. um Jupiter was very, he was a very sexual being, and engaged in a lot of different activities that eventually led to his demise. When you get into the stories of Obatala's, issue was with the palm wine, and every time he indulged in that sense, and was inebriated, bad things will happen. But when that chakra was balanced, good things would happen. We're in abundance, we're in joy, we're being optimistic, we're being philanthropic, we're giving back, we have so much, keep going for us and stuff like that. And so yeah, all that to say, I do agree that they're all in alignment, they're all together, and we tell stories to talk about energy, to talk about nature, to talk about behaviors that happen. And when you really break it down, you're also talking about the science. Like you say, you're getting into the atomic makeup. What happens when you have too many protons? What happens when you got too many neutrons? What happens when there's an imbalance here? What happens when you try to split an atom? You know what I'm saying? Some things that, people are trying to do now because, they took the spirituality out of science, and so, moving in that space with those levels of division is why you have scientists, behaving the way they do, and they lack this certain level of morale and a certain level of respect for nature and for people and humanity and stuff. Elon Musk is a perfect example. I don't know if I'm allowed to say his name. We done already got paused, my bad. But he's a perfect example of what it looks like when somebody removes the nature and the spirituality and that code of Mayat from science and the physical world, because he's just doing whatever he wants. And then, we see nature responding, and, people are not putting one and one together. It's just, oh, it's global warming. It's global warming. You know what I'm saying? And it's just like, well, you guys aren't putting into consideration that your energy also matters. How you're treating your body, how you're treating each other, your mindset on things, the energy that we're putting out into the ones and zeros is being absorbed into the chakras of earth, into the chakras of nature. That's why we used to do rain dances. You know what I'm saying? Like, harp is a fake version of what we used to do naturally, if you can get, and it's crazy, the Weather Channel. So I noticed this, especially when I was living in Virginia. I noticed that the Weather Channel relies upon people's collective mindsets for certain weathers to be true. If I tell you it's raining, I don't really know if it's raining or not, but I got like thousands of y'all to say that that it's going to rain. So it's going to rain, you know? So it might not rain the day that I said it was going to rain, but by this weekend, because y'all keep saying it's going to rain, it's going to rain, it's going to rain, we keep talking about rain, the rain is going to happen. And that's the same, spirit science of us doing rain dances, or us, doing things for the sun, or us, doing things for, each season that comes and stuff. We had this knowledge. It's not nothing new. It's more so like about remembering and being reminded in a world that wants us to keep everything separate and divisive. And what's in the physical, that separation between church and state. There shouldn't be a separation.
Absolutely not.
The separation is why we have so much immorality in the state. We got the lady of justice walking around with a blindfold on. Mayat not supposed to have no blindfold on. So it's like certain things like that, all this stuff is supposed to be interconnected. It's supposed to be spirituality in this education system. They make sure, they put God in it when it benefits them to put God in it. When you're doing the Pledge of Allegiance, or, they're oppressing their Christianity. Because like you said, we came over here, PBS actually did a whole special on the Moors and how they came to the Americas way before the colonists, way before Christopher Columbus came. And actually Christopher Columbus came with a book written by a Moor, explaining, the different lands, which I got a bone to pick about that. But you know what? When I get my little time machine and I go back and I find that person that gave him that book, it's gonna be some smoke in the city.
I'm so sorry on the phone because I'm like, what is she talking about? Hey, listen, hey, hold on. Y'all know I got the bookshelf of all bookshelves, right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I definitely got the bookshelf of all bookshelves. Classic.
Yes, sir.
That's a good one. Mm-hmm.
Yes, sir.
They came before.
Yes, sir.
You touched on something, right? You talked about how they took the spirituality out of government. Our ancestors, our people were always governed by priests. You understand what I'm saying? We're always governed so that way, every decision that was made, it was always made with a divine compass. Let me tell y'all something. You talking about ruffling feathers, right? Man, you see it happening, when people stop, when the spiritual science, which is the Quran says, the attainment of virtues, he accounteth as the highest learning. When that is no longer the case, and now it's all about, studying law, not Allah's law, not divine law, not the law that governs all events, but studying regulations and statutes that men can change and connive whenever they get ready has taken the place over us developing virtue. All right. I would like for the people to go and look up the word virtue. One of the definitions of virtue is power. You understand what I'm saying? So when the Prophet Noble Ali is telling us that the attainment of virtue, he accounted as the higher learning. So yes, we learn to be benevolent, and ultimately we become powerful because of it. Because if you teach him benevolence, what happens? His mind shall be exalted. This is what the Quran says. You understand me? It says if you teach him science, his life should be useful. So when we right now, today, we are living in a time and we are functioning in a temple that sadly is doing the same thing. It's doing the same thing. And the solution is hidden in plain sight. It's hidden in plain sight. If the Prophet Noble Ali tells us to go back to the state of mind of our forefathers, divine creed, the principles, then it's like my mic crazy. It sound like my mic messing up to y'all?
I can hear a little scrunch.
I can hear you good. You just got like a little echo, like a walkie-talkie echo thing happening.
Hold up, you gotta fix that.
Yeah, the resistance is real today.
What is going on?
Like y'all not finna tell people what's hidden in plain sight.
Hey.
You do it too much.
Man, I got the microphone echo cancellation. All of that is turned on.
We need more cryptic titles, sir. I said we
Nah.
need more cryptic podcast titles.
Hey, you know what? I'm gonna tell you something. So I had the AI generate the title, and the title was "Hidden in Plain Sight: The History and Spiritual Teachings of the Moors." And I switched it around. It said the history and spiritual teachings of the Moors hidden in plain sight. You understand? Because to me, that makes more sense.
It does.
Yeah.
So but, I don't know what the heck is going on with my microphone. Let me try to adjust the volume here. What it sound like now? Same thing.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's how they rock. But either way it goes, that's something. And for me, I came up in what we would call the village. like we called where I was at in the prison, we called it the village. You know, we had a collection of elders and brothers around us. We took this learning, you know, very serious. And, you know, we learned everything, you know, like we was in all different groups. And, you know, we studied, like I literally studied everybody else's teaching with the same vigor that I studied my own, you know. So when I came, well, not even when I came home, but the first time I got a cell phone in my hand and I started to really hear how you know, we came from this part of the planet. We conquered this part of the planet. We own these people. We're owned by these people. All of that type of thing, which we study. Look, listen, we eat this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
This stuff did not mean more to us than our Qurans or our Bibles or our many letters or our. They didn't mean more to us today. You know what I mean? Me understanding myself and my spiritual makeup, me becoming proficient at utilizing and having my spirit to actuate and direct me rather than to be moved by my sensations like you talked about earlier. I'll never forget sitting down with the Ethan Yoruba was watching the video. This video was so very important. But the video was about it was a Santeria video, but I was with the Yorubas and they was watching the video, and Ogun had went into the wilderness and he wouldn't come out. He would not come out. He was refusing to come out. Everybody was trying to get him to come out. Rumala, Obatala, everybody's just trying to get a leg by. Everybody's trying to urge Ogun to come out of the wilderness. But he's just in the wilderness. He's sad. He ain't talking. He don't want to come out. So Oshun walks up. Oshun walks up and see, like, you know, what's going on, what y'all doing? And they was like, you know, Ogun won't come out of the wilderness. Like, he won't come out. And she looked into this. She said, oh, I'll get him out. And she dropped her robe, went into the wilderness. A little while later, she brought him out. He needed a balance because Ogun is a warrior. But even though, you know, this is his primary purpose, yet and still, the spirit of man is still in him. So he requires a balance. You understand what I'm saying? And then even when we look at Haru is will. All right. This is our willpower. But without Haru or the house of Haru, and if he is not in his house, if he is not able to at least go home when he needs to, then he can't. He's not going to be proficient at what he's supposed to do. He needs his house, which is his what? His imagination, his ability to be free, and not just be free to roam, but to be free to do as he experienced, to have life take place the way he envisioned it and imagined that it should. This is man. I know from experience when you establish a plan, set a goal for yourself, it doesn't matter how hard it is, but you can give much more of yourself to that than you could to doing something that you don't want to do, or even doing something for somebody else, even if you love them. Our imagination, the ability to actually, you know, try to experience what we see in our head, what we daydream about. Man, that's Haru. That's what the house of Haru is. You know, so when we see these things, you know, like for me, studying this and learning this about myself is what was most important. You know, when I'm going to the Holy Quran of the Moorish Temple of America, you know, I can't tell you how many times I'm going to always continuously read over and over holy instructions for thy children. I'm gonna read this over and over and over. I'm gonna see in my mind, I need to know what's going to happen as I climb this hill. That's what's gonna keep me climbing. You understand what I'm saying? That's what's gonna keep me climbing. So it's another people, the Dogon people. The Dogon people. The Holy Quran of the Moorish Temple of America, it speaks to something that the Dogon people, you know, and what they did by being able to, they naked eye see serious beat that started that burnt out 70,000 years ago. You understand what I'm saying? This star burned out 70,000 years ago. And they not only could they see it, but they could see this dwarf star. You know, and people are like, well, how do you know that star is like that? The Holy Quran, in the chapter of the soul of man, in the chapter of soul of man, it asks us some questions. It asks us, you know, how our eyes is piercing as the eagles. And the average person would say no. Right?
Mm-hmm.
But every last one of us has looked up into the sky and seen objects that are light years away.
Mm-hmm.
They are light years away, and we see them. But then we'll turn around and look across the room, and because we have convinced ourselves that there's a limitation on what we can perceive, or because our eyes is only interacting with the light, and the light is there. Right? The light is absolutely there. But now the eyes communicating this back to the brain is something totally different. All right. So now when we start talking about all of our ancestors and, you know, how they took meditation, how they took learning to focus so serious, this is why. And this is why they didn't have the limitations that we have now. And if we, like you said, keep on moving church and state further and further apart, even in the more scientific level, then believe it or not, all our kids gonna be reading books like this. They all gonna be reading books like this because they think they have to.
Mm-hmm.
Not because they have to, but because they've convinced their brain that they have to.
Mm-hmm.
So we talk about, you know, things that's hidden in plain sight, and well, we do some stuff.
Man, y'all said a few things I wanted to comment on. I tried to find my laptop charger, but I don't know what happened.
I don't know what happened either.
Bro, I don't know what happened. I think my son hit it or something. But to really try to connect everything we just got through talking about, especially, you know, our ability to, you know, see stars, our ability to, you know, us being the seed that came forth from the heart of Allah, right? All seeds of Allah are thoughts.
That's right.
Right? And understanding that, again, the things that are hidden in plain sight has been built off the back of our genius. So even going back to what I was saying last week about our intellectual property, our intellectual property, whether we want to talk about mathematics, whether we want to talk about literature, whether we want to talk about architecture, medicine, etc. A lot of these things come forth. Like, for example, many of the Moors who wrote books on science and medicine, their books were still used until like the 1700s in European colleges and universities. For example, people like Ibn Rushd, people like who's known as Averroes, people like Ibn Sina, people like Ibn Beja. These were people who their scientific knowledge and expertise was still used, it's still being used to this day. And our children and our adults are not learning this. And the reason why, you know, things seem so out of place in our society today is because our whole society has been built off of this concept that we are inferior, that we are less than. So then if you've already been bred it into you that you less than, and then you're fed, you know, the exploitation of your people every second of the day, then you start to live the life. And again, another point the sister made about, you know, the Yoruba and the rainmaking. That's something that when Islam was, you know, going down further and further entrenched into West Africa, that's something that the Yoruba priests and the Sufi marabouts had in common. That they would use, like Muslims would pray for rain as well. So they would use the combined technology in their area, rainmaking, that was something that was sacred to the Yoruba priests and the Sufi marabout in cities like Oyo, which was a huge Yoruba and Islamic community as well. So it's like, again, they don't want us to see these connections. They want us to live in our bubble. The algorithm is created for individualism. They want to feed you confirmation bias on a day-to-day basis.
That's right.
Things that confirm what you already know. And it's like, our societies did not run like that. For example, like how horses got into Southwest Africa. They was coming from the north. All right. So it's just like, these are things that, again, our people still to this day treat Islam like it's voodoo or something.
Huh.
You know what I'm saying? And it's because of the association with things. Yes, sir. What's your man, God of civilization? Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Hey, when you brought up the horse, that's what made me grab this book.
Yes, sir.
And this is why I found out that the prehistoric horse was about 12 inches tall.
Mm.
It had feet like we got hands.
Islam. Islam. Yeah. Yeah.
But
like a lot of, even when we look at, again, things like coffee, like people love Starbucks, right? You talk about all type of European women and their cups and all of these things, not even knowing that something like coffee came from African Muslims. And then these coffee houses is how, you know, word of the Enlightenment and all of these things spread in Europe. The Protestant Reformation, all of these things, they gathered at coffee houses. So, like, without, as the prophet said it, the prophet said it best. To the early representatives of this faith, the world's debt is incalculably great. Paraphrasing. But it's true. The world doesn't even know how much it's in debt to the golden age of the Moors or the golden age of Islam. And that's why Islam has always been the way we practice Islam. The way Moors practice Islam has always been the threat to the society that we live in, because the society that we live in wants to put things in bubbles, individualize it. It's very rigid. It's very strict. They don't want to see fluidity. They don't want to see diffusion. They don't want to see cooperation, comparative religion and theology. Because then we start to see, oh, they told y'all this, they told y'all that. I know y'all seen this thing on TikTok about Asiatics in Scotland and things like that? Y'all been seeing that? Right? And a brother went over there and he's asking him, like, what was they teaching y'all in school? And one brother said, oh, they taught us this, but they didn't teach us that. Oh, they taught us Caribbean and African history, but they didn't teach us about what the Asiatics in America was doing. Well, they taught us nothing about nothing here. So it's like we're all getting, you know, different parts of the spectrum. We all getting the spin.
Mm-hmm.
We all getting spent and not really knowing a lot of this stuff stems from us. Like the sister was saying, so I'm starting to remember all the points that I was getting to. Like when Columbus came here, the Pinta, the Nina, the Santa Maria, The Pinzon brothers, these was Moors that helped him get here. The astrolabe, the quadrant, the compass. This is Moorish technology. The caravel, which the Portuguese like to take credit for. Prince Henry, King Henry, got Muslims, Jews from Spain and brought them to him to put all of this information together. But they don't want it's the narrative. They don't want to center it. Like, why would they center it? Oh, Moors helped Christopher Columbus come to the Americas. No. They don't glory in that for them.
I mean, but we know why.
Exactly.
We know why. We know exactly why. You know what I mean? When you got to Google.
Yes, sir.
You know?
So I got a question, like a
Yes.
curiosity. So when it comes into like, okay, when the colonists came over here and, you know, they had the help from the Moors, whether it was the technology or like an actual Moor themselves saying, hey, you know, this is what the map looked like, this how you use this how y'all wash your ass, this how you do the right?
Mhm.
So when you have like all of this, I one of the conversations that comes up a lot is, you know, this whole okay, it's a couple different ideas coming into one because you know when the Moors were going, you know, going to war again in the 1400 13th century or whatever, they had to create like their secret societies to maintain some of their knowledge. So a lot of this goes into like this whole black supremacy type thing. How like some of the Moors are actually like helped, you know, the colonists like in a like this benefits me as well type situation. And a lot of that is why people do have a sour taste in their mouth about Moors or being connected to Islam from that time period. Also getting into a little bit more is when you get into like the Muslim slave trade. I don't know exactly how to formulate a question out of this. I just want y'all to expand on that information because that is like a big rebuttal with this. Is like the Moors were in on it with the colonists. You know, some of them benefited from it as well. And so, you know, it was kind of like a tribe on tribe type of situation happening too, not just so much as white people came over here and did white people stuff. You know what I'm saying?
I'm smiling because that narrative, and I'm not saying you saying this, but that narrative shows the lack of how much we actually know what happened and what was going on. Because it all goes back to after the Umayyad Caliphate fell in 1031. That after 1031, the Caliphate split into what they call taifas, the petty kingdoms or the party kings, so they would say.
Okay.
And so basically, it's like, for example, that's if like, let's just say a civil war happened in the United States and now every governor in each state now becomes its own president. So that's what happened. And then once that happened, the taifas fought against each other. And with that brought, let's say, adventurous partnerships with the Christian kingdoms. So a Muslim kingdom, let's say Zaragoza, they would work with Castile to try to bang on Cordoba, who the Qadi of Cordoba.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what would form these kind of inter-religious relationships. So that's the origin of kind of like these partnerships between Christians, Muslims, etc. But also what we have to understand is too that a lot of Asiatics were still Christian. Not again, it's more civilization, more Spain, majority is Muslims, but some Asiatics were still Christian. You have again, Saint Maurice was the patron saint for the Holy Roman Empire. We got to understand that. So then, once you get into the 1200s, the 1300s, the 1400s, once you get to the fall of Granada, again, we split. So people like to bring up, oh, the Moors helped the colonists do their thing, but they never bring up that Moors were enslaving Europeans off the Mediterranean coast, off the Atlantic, grabbing slave ships and things like that. They don't want to bring that up. So on one end, you have Moors helping colonists. On the other end, you have Moors rebelling. That's the same thing is happening today.
Mm-hmm.
On one end, you got Asiatics helping Europeans with government and things like that. On the other end, you got Asiatics trying to create counter movements and things like it's the same thing. So it's like we have to look at it from a whole picture perspective. Now, when it comes to the, you want to jump in?
I'll wait till you get done.
I'm absorbing.
So when we tie this into what they like to call the Arab slave trade, again, our people forget how old we are, how old our history is. Kush, Egypt, Nubia subjugated parts of Arabia for thousands of years. We're talking thousands of years, right? So again, this concept of slavery, even in Mali in West Africa, slavery was going on with no Europeans around. So but the difference is the type of slavery that was going on, right? As Dr. Jose Pennington Bey would say, a slave in a Muslim country will be able to go and represent on behalf of its people in the courts of law. In 1800 United States, no slave from the South will be able to go to DC to represent people enslaved in Georgia.
Most slaves never seen anything but their plantation.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So we're talking about different systems, right? Egypt had Moses. His people was enslaved in Egypt. This is Asiatics enslaving Asiatics.
Hold on.
Yes, sir.
Islam.
Yes, sir.
Attention is the pilot that must conduct the internal port.
Yes, sir.
So the Bible says that there came a time when there was a Pharaoh that didn't know Joseph.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So people say that it was Asiatics enslaving Asiatics, but we all know about the dynastic periods that occurred in Egypt.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So it wasn't necessarily Asiatics enslaving Asiatics at all. You understand what I'm saying? That probably wasn't the case. I seriously doubt it. You explain to me when the day will come when there be a president that don't know George Washington. When will the day come when there be a president who don't know who Benjamin Franklin is, who don't know who Donald Trump is? Tell me when that day will come, and I'll tell you that when that day comes, that means that president ain't from nowhere around here. Ain't from nowhere around here, and that's what the Bible says. Right. So we got to take a look at that. I also want to say this to your point, right? Without a doubt or a contradiction, the type of slavery that was demonstrated on our people has not ever been seen or experienced or imagined in no other history, no other point in time. Still, the Holy Quran of the Moorish Temple of America, the Prophet Noble Dua Ali say, through sin and disobedience, all people suffer slavery because they honor not the creed and principles of their forefathers. So, what in the world is wrong with my mic?
Yeah,
all right. But, yeah, what is that? You see, it's the battery plug.
No, I can't hear you at all.
Can't hear you at all, Mo.
All right, can you hear me now?
Yeah, that's better.
All right. Okay. So I'll never forget I read what's it called? Great African Glory. Yeah. I read Great African Glory years ago, around the time when I first joined the temple. And I was reading about the Moors, and I literally started crying. I mean, I started crying real tears. I'm reading in this book, and it talks about how the Moors from the medieval, and there's something else we gotta understand. Like you said, we forget how old we are, because this is the medieval times, and the Prophet Noble Drew Ali tells us that our flag is over 10,000 years old. So when we start studying our history, we need to start going back at least 10,000 years. But when we look at medieval times, the Moors went into Egypt, and they sent 5,000 Europeans to conquer, sack Egypt, and take gold and take stuff about it. Literally made me cry. You know, so when people, you know, people say that the Moors did some foul things, and it all was because of king ambition. Everybody wanted to be the caliph, or all the same thing, like you said. Instead of us, you know, we lost that holistic that it's the same thing now. It's the same thing now, but it ain't just the Moors. When we talk, we gotta understand all of you Asiatics out there. Y'all might not be members of the Moorish Science Temple of America, but we all got the same father and mother. We all have the same father and mother. And here it is, we still finding every reason and every excuse that we can to not be one people. One of my favorite women that ever did live on the planet Earth is the Queen Nzinga. The Queen Nzinga is one of my all-time favorite people that ever did walk this planet. Her brother sold slaves, sold their people into into Europe. She said, no, not ever. The Portuguese thought this woman was the devil. She was the devil incarnate as far as they was concerned, because that's how she fought them to keep her people free. You understand me? But she came to hate slavery so much, and it was something that her people was doing. They were selling these slaves. Now, let's understand this. I hear a lot of people talk about, hey, you know, where, you know, the Moors participated in the slave trade, the Arabians participated in the slave trade, and all this other type of thing. And you know what? I hate to say this. Hold on, it's long. Hey, Day baby. Yeah. That's your cousin in. I hate to say this, but a lot of these people, the same ones selling poison in the neighborhood, in the communities.
Yes, sir.
A lot of these ones is the same one bringing their toxic attitude and behavior right outside to all the little kids that's running up and down the streets watching your grown man act a fool and learning how to act a fool. So instead of us seeing that it's a reason why this history has been recorded, why Allah allowed for us to have this type of experience, so that we can never revert back to such behavior and forget what's most important.
Yes, sir. Real quick,
I think we don't see that that alignment between historical activity and today. I think that's the big thing, because when you say like, oh, you know, especially like over here and, you know, with the Native American tribes, or, you know, American Native tribes, they have you know, they enslaved each other too, but it was like it was a result of war. Like if we go to battle, you know, and I capture you, you're mine. You know, whatever happens out of that happens out of that. I'm gonna, you know, sacrifice you, you're gonna work for me or whatever, or, you know, this, that, and the third. But people don't see like that behavior being reflected in today's behavior. Again, coming out of that divisiveness. The same thing you're saying, like, okay, these are the same bloodlines that's, you know, doing the wicked stuff outside now. They got the businesses now and they got people working for them, or, you know, they sexual deviants now, you know, different things like that. Well, kind of reminding people and putting that into a perspective, you know, hearing it in that way, I would think that would change a lot of people's minds on the behavior of today. because it's kind of like a that was then, this is now. So what I'm doing is not as bad as what they were doing type of thing, because the jargon is different. The same way you go from like enslavement to employment type, and you get into that kind of jargon and a different, and how we use that dead language. But the dead language that we utilize, it kind of softens the blow, because we've been conditioned to not look at it as a dead language. We've been conditioned like this is just regular. It's a regular conversation. Like, we've been talking about this since kindergarten. What you want to be when you grow up? You know what I'm saying? Like, how you want to be? Like, these are things to look forward to. And we don't realize that, we're signing over our soul, our SOL, over. And but if we were to unify the language, the jargon, I think that would be like a really big eye opener and a heart opener to a lot of that information.
I wanted to, before we got too far away, push back on the Moses thing. I'm glad you brought up the Pharaoh that didn't know Joseph, because again, like the Bible, like I would say, is based on a true story, right? This is mythology, symbolism, signs based on real events that happened in that time period. More so the Old Testament, more than anything. So when we look at the time period from when a Joseph would have been in Egypt, right? It would have been what they like to say during the time of the Hyksos or the Hyksos, right? But if you actually look up original, depictions of the Hyksos, they look like you and me. Then when we start to look at around the time Moses would have been in Egypt, again, based on a true story, right? It would have been in between. A lot of people argue that it was either between the time of Ramesses and his line, or the time of Amenhotep II. Amenhotep IV's great grandfather, who was known as Akhenaten. And what some of the people on the cutting edge of this field talks about is that, again, Avaris, the city of Avaris, which was the capital at Egypt at that time during the Hyksos, is right there in between what we call Canaan and Egypt, right there on the Eastern Nile Delta, in that area. And it's also the same city where they built Pyramuses that talks about in the Bible, right? Mm-hmm. So this area, the Eastern Delta of Egypt, is basically the corridor between what we call modern day Africa and Asia. Mm-hmm. And again, the people, like they try to say Hyksos meant, right, shepherd kings, foreigners, etc. But what's been coming out is that, again, your Hyksos, these was Amorites. So again, what I was trying to say, these Asiatics, enslaved Asiatics, the historical time period that matches the context of the biblical stories. This is the time period that's syncing up with the stories that they're talking about. Now, some of the stories are what they call anachronistic, in a sense of they may name, like if we talk about this happened there was a war in 15th century New York. Well, it wasn't called New York in 15th century. Right. But because we, to get people to understand what we're talking about, we would use an anachronism, a name for something after the time period of what we're talking about, so that people can know what we're talking about. So that's a lot of the symbolism in the biblical story. Why certain, like the name Pyramuses, the city of Ramesses that was built, they're using this term because it's connected to the time period, versus it being called Avaris, which was probably what it was called at the time in Joseph's time. Saying that to say, but the Israelites at that time didn't know the name of it. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah.
I'm drawn now. For me, I always, because when that first jumped out to me, that one tidbit, right? But then you look at it and you look at the other terms, like the term Pharaoh, and like, you know, other Greek terminology that's used in that particular scripture, in that book. And to me, I look at that hand like, you know, we know that Alexander the Greek didn't go into Egypt until about, after almost, if we look at the time periods, almost 2,000 years after what we are talking about. But that's not to say that the Greeks had not been in Egypt before. You see what I'm saying? So, and then, you know, and historically too, I stopped. I'm gonna keep whining with you more. I stopped considering Bible history years ago, because when I looked at Bible as if it was history, then I could find no value in it. Because when I look at history, I can't find these events. You know, so we could go back to that same period. We can't find no Moses. We can't find no pardon of the Red Sea. We can't find no Exodus. We can't find none of that. You know, and then not just that, but the mass majority of the events. Some of the events we can find in history, like when we get later on and we start talking about King Xerxes and you know, that particular time period. Yeah. But for a lot, even when we get into, you know, the New Testament, and we get into some of the Acts, you know, a lot of people, you know, they say, well, we can't find Jesus, but we can find certain events, you know, especially involving the canvases and things like that. But I just don't look at it like history, but I do pay attention to everything that's being said. And if you ask
I
me,
kind of look at it like everything.
Yeah. That's why
I
I say
was
it's
saying I
based on
kind of
true
look at
story.
it like everything, because I be thinking about like, all right, like for me, my journal entries, when I write in my journal or whatever, right? I had these events that happened. You know what I'm saying? But like at the top of my journal entry, I'll put like where the sun is at, where the moon is at, what the mathematics of today is. And you could see all those interconnections. So you could see like how, okay, this is what I got going on inside of me. This is how my emotions are going, blah, blah, blah. But then these are how my interactions with other people are responding to how I feel inside. And then you see the interactions of how, as above, so is below. So now you see like, oh, wow, but the stars was doing this at the same time. And the mathematics was this at the same time. And this stuff is happening on the other side of the world. And butterfly effect over here on this country, something similar was also happening. Da, da, da. So it's like everything happening all at once. And that's how I look at the Bible. Like, I look at it like, yeah, like I forget the word that brother used, but you know that word is like, yeah, Jesus is used out of context or whatever because the names have been switched, this, that, and the third. Just like a lot of other like jargon words have been switched because you gotta figure like this book has went through many empires. So as soon as the book goes through another empire, they got their scribes coming through and editing that John, and they keep the structure of it the same. You know what I'm saying? They keep that bone structure of the same, but the meat and the skin and the features, they change a lot of that stuff. So when it comes to like the names and all the things and stuff like that, but the structure is still the same because there are many. We got Jesuses out here right now. We watch get gunned down in the street. You know what I'm saying? We watch many Jesuses get hit by the guillotine. We watch many Jesuses get hung by on a tree. Back then it was getting hung on a cross. Jesus wasn't the only one that was hung on a cross. That was regular occurrences. You want to go against the government? You want to go against the banks? You want to tell people how to use their spiritual selves? You want to teach people how to utilize their Kundalini magic and all stuff like this? You gotta go. You can't stay here. And so it's like nothing new under the sun. Same thing with like Moses and his Exodus. We've had many Moseses. We've had many people come into this space and say, hey, I'm gonna bring y'all out here. And then the people complain the whole entire time because they would rather be enslaved than be free and be responsible or held accountable for taking care of themselves. I mean, I see that today. Declare your nationality, grow your own food, grow your own medicine, get back into this collective economics. We need our own currency. Why aren't we even talking about our own currency? The Federal Reserve is awful. The Federal Reserve is the root to a lot of stuff going on. But we allow, these other, entities, these other Asiatics to tell us, oh yeah, you want money, you got to make money. Da, da, da. Well, yeah, you got to have, that personification of energy, because we don't value each other's energy well enough. We need that little piece of paper, that little representation or whatever. But in the same breath, we should have our own. We should have our own representation, not the one that's given to us. You know what I'm saying? Stuff like that. But you have people that don't want to be accountable and don't want to be responsible, and they will complain the whole time. And those be the main ones that I have is going backwards, or like we'll see them dying off. And just like Moses and Aaron kept saying, like, these people dying off, now people going to tell the story about how I brought them all the way out here to die. And that's not even what's really happening. See, Moses already knew that the story was going to get flipped. You know what I'm saying? So when they go tell the tale, ain't nobody going to want to be free. Because remember that one time we was free? Just like now. Remember that one time we had Black Wall Street? It's the same thing to me. So it's like I think about it all at the same time, all at once, everything. Like, you look at the Bible, you'll see like, okay, this is how you treat your chakras. Well, this is also how the constellations and the sun and star move. And this is also how we've been treated as a people. This is also how we've treated each other. This is how we treat ourselves. This is how we treated our lineages and our bloodlines and stuff like that. That's why we put our birth and our marriages and our deaths in the Bible, because it was to, camel walk with those bloodlines that are in that book, stuff like that. That's just my, my little world. I can't hear nothing you saying. They cut you all the way off.
All right,
well over my hard stop as well.
Am I back now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. I see it that way. When I see it, I don't see it as history. I mean, like as like real events, like if we pick up, But seeing it that way, I do see the story as, what's taking place as the results of behavior. Like if we behave this way, this is what's going to happen. You know what I mean? If we keep going about it this way, especially when I read like the book of Isaiah, like that's what Isaiah was, somebody who was looking at the time that he was living in, and he was foreseeing what was going to come if things kept on going the way that they was. That's how I see that. So yeah, I know my mic is all messed up. It's jacked up today. You know what? Bump y'all. We gonna do it again.
Right.
We gotta run this
Ain't
topic back.
stopping nothing.
We gonna bring this one back. We gonna run this back ASAP. Yeah. We gonna run this back. You know what? I'm scared to check, but see, my internet has to get like it'd be like restart the internet, and I bet you I'm gonna check it right now, and I bet you it's gonna tell me that I need to restart the internet. Yeah, we're gonna put that Joan on repeat.
Got to.
He say put that Joan on repeat. We're gonna put that Joan on repeat, man. When we coming back, y'all? I don't want to wait till all the way to Tuesday. When y'all got some free time?
Man, it depends. If you want to do something.
Oh, you know what? I'm sorry, Mo. We probably can't do nothing Tuesday because we got the Moors coming to town this week.
Oh yeah.
So if we don't do it before I have to come back Tuesday. We got the Moors coming down to Peoria. We finna be, we got business to take care of.
100%. Yeah, I was going, like I said, a little over my hard stop. I was going to jump off, but if there's any last words or anything that we wanted to before I jumped off,
we might as well end it because it sounds bad, and just like I said, my internet needs to be restored.
Okay. Well, I know we was gonna cook and get somewhere today.
Hey, listen, we gonna bring it back.
Gotta bring it back.
We gonna bring it back, and then this was, and it's crazy because it was the spur of the moment topic. But guess what I'm gonna do now? I'm gonna flood the spectrum with all types of flyers and all types of tune-ins. And I'm gonna flood the spectrum. So yeah, let's run it back, man.
For sure.
Back again, you know, honestly, y'all for being here, you know, bringing, contributing what y'all contribute. It's a beautiful thing. And oh yeah, I forgot to tell the people, like, share, subscribe. Y'all know you're not supposed to do that, right? You know, when you're doing podcasts, you're supposed to tell them like 3 or 4 minutes into it. I'll be sitting here, one of y'all be talking to y'all be cooking. I'm not gonna stop them from cooking right now, so I can tell the people to like. I'm not gonna cut their wisdom for that.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? You know what I'm gonna do though? I'm gonna make the thing down here at the bottom, the thing that's going right there. I'm gonna put it on there. Like, share, subscribe, do all that stuff. Especially go over to Simply More Science Media on YouTube. Go over to Simply More Science Media on YouTube and subscribe to the channel. So subscribe to the channel. Help us grow that platform. And anybody who's listening, if you got something that is simply more science, it is welcome on the channel. All you gotta do is get it to one of us, and we'll get it uploaded. You know, so let's do that. But all is well.
All is well.
Yeah.
All is well. Okay.
Salam, Morris.
Peace and love.